Hello and welcome to a beautiful afternoon here in Las Vegas. The sun is coming down and the temperature is going down. This is my first video of a series, hopefully crossing the entire country in an old 1965 CJ5 Jeep. In this video I'm going to explain to you what the plan is and how we're going to execute it. And hopefully we get it done. Hello, my name is Sebastian Yappert. I'm 32 years old. I live here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was born in Argentina, but I came here when I was 7 years old, so I lived here most of my life. I like to travel a lot, and I like old cars. I like fixing old things. So I figured I combined the two and travel with this 1965 Jeep CJ5. And one of the reasons why is because a while ago I started traveling the country in a motorcycle. And while I was heading north from here, I got rear-ended by a drunk guy in Oregon. And I figured the motorcycle it wasn't a good idea anymore. It's too dangerous. So I chose this. This is as basic or as close to a motorcycle as you can get. It's got no doors. It's got no windows. It's got no heater, no air conditioning. It's got nothing. It's got a set of gauges inside of it, a 3-speed manual, and 4-wheel drum brakes. And that's pretty much it. So I figured this would be a good adventure to try to document it and make a channel about it. I also don't have any recording experience or any editing experience in video, so this is all going to be a learning experience for sure. But I think it could be done. There's plenty of other YouTube videos that show you how to do it, so I think I could learn. And our goal is going to be to cross the country, and I'm not sure exactly how yet, if we're going to go north and then east, or if we're going to go all the way east and come back. But I want to get to every state and document every state and the adventures that come along traveling with an old car like this along the way too. Now this car is not restored. It's just been fixed up a little bit. I'll show you how I bought it and what I did to it. I got this thing from Craigslist for $3,000 about a year ago. It was not running. It had been sitting for a long time. Had old fuel and it had an ignition issue. But we got it all fixed up and we kind of got it cleaned up and made it ready for the road. There's going to be a lot of other things that have to be done to it too to make it more comfortable for traveling. But we're going to document all that stuff and see how we can do it. And then hopefully we can cross the country and make a video about it, a nice documentary about it, and show every state and how we fix this thing up when it breaks and how we have to travel at very slow speeds because it only does like 50 miles an hour. But sometimes that's better because you get to see a lot more of everywhere that you're going through. So we'll check it out. We'll see how it goes. Now, another goal for this video is going to be the budget. I have a regular job. I fix air compressors here in Las Vegas. So I am on a service truck 5 days a week at least. And a lot of traveling channels, they just dedicate themselves to traveling. They don't have another job. That's all they do. So I'm going to try to show that you could travel while you're working too. You could take a couple days, a month maybe, and then travel. And our goal is going to be to travel and leave the Jeep at a storage or some sort of a parking lot, an extended stay parking lot. And then we're going to fly back home, and then we're going to go back whenever we're done working and continue this trip until we cross all the country, until we cross every state. It's going to be challenging, but I just don't have the budget to quit my job and do this. And I think it's more realistic that way. A lot of channels that they show you how they travel, that's all they do for a living, and that's really nice, but I just can't afford that. So another goal of this channel is to show you that it is possible to travel, even if you have a regular job and you're working hard, and you could also do it on a budget. And we'll try to camp as much as we can, or cheap hotels, and try to eat, from a grocery store and cook ourselves instead of going out to dinner every night and spending a lot of money. But we'll try to keep a nice tight budget on this and still travel and go just where everybody else has gone and explore without breaking the bank too much, because we have lives. We got a rent to pay, and we got mouths to feed. So it's not easy. That's probably going to be the hardest part, but that's what's going to make this channel more real. So this is it. This is my 1965 Jeep CJ5, and this is what we're going to do the project with. It's got a lot of problems. It's hardly an example of a mint condition or even a good condition Jeep. It's in decent shape. Underneath there's no rust or anything on it, and the axles are good. But there is a lot of things that need to be done, as you can tell by the lack of a cylinder head. I'll explain that here in just a minute. So the Jeep itself is pretty much stock. It did come with these wheels on it, which are pretty nice. They're aluminum. I did put a new set of tires on it. They were the cheapest that I could find, 235 75 15s. They paid something like $85 a piece for them, and I mounted them myself. In here there was a seat, a rear seat, which I took off, because we will be putting some sort of a box or a cover or something at the back to keep our camping supplies and travel supplies dry. I put a new spare tire also on it, and it was rattle canned in white. It was a pretty bad paint job, I mean, as it was, and I don't think I made it any better. I rattle canned it green just because it covered more of the crap up, and I think it just looks a little bit, more rough, or it looks a little better, kind of. Now the biggest problem that we had here was that this thing was burning a lot of oil. It was burning somewhere in the range of 1 quart per 50 miles, which is almost 2-stroke ratios, honestly. It's really, really bad. So it was visible too, which was annoying. And what I did is I pulled the cylinder head off, and I pulled the oil pan off, and I was able to get the pistons out. Now this is the F134 engine, which is right after the L134, which is just lateral valves. This engine has the exhaust valve on the block and the intake valve on the cylinder head. So it's a combination of a overhead valve and a lateral or a side valve engine. And it runs surprisingly good. It doesn't have a lot of power. I think it has somewhere in the range of 68 horsepower or so. When I pulled the ring or the pistons, I checked the ring end gap on it, and I noticed that the gap was around 3 to 4 times what the manual stated it was. But I also did notice that this engine had been rebuilt once or maybe even twice. It was 20,000 over on the pistons. So what I did is I ordered a set of rings, and I ordered them 30 over. And what I'll be doing is, because, well, number one, I don't have a lot of money, and number two, I don't have a lot of time, I'm going to be giving this thing a hone just to take off some of the scratches, especially on the number 4 cylinder. There are some pretty deep scratches on the number 4 cylinder, which should be taken to a machine shop and bored out to the next size. But like I said, I don't have the money for that. So we're just going to give it a hone and hopefully take some of that off. And the pistons that it has now, they are 20 thousandths over. So with the 30 thousandths ring, I will file them until I get the correct ring end gap on them. And hopefully that'll make it run a little bit better, smoke a little bit less, and consume less oil. Like I said, I know it's not what it's recommended or what it's supposed to be done, but it's all I can afford, and it's all I have the time to do. So, if it runs better, then it runs better, and if it doesn't, well, then we'll still go on our trip, and we could still prove that even with an old car, we could do something fun. You don't have to have a brand new expensive Jeep to, go out and travel. This Jeep was $3,000 off of Craigslist, and I bought this Jeep, I believe it was January of 2024. It did not run. I'll be posting some pictures of that. I'll also be posting pictures of the, links of where I get the parts from for these things. And we'll keep all the prices on the video so that you know how much money we spend. And all the modifications and, little things I had to do, I'll go over all that. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and see if we can hone these cylinders out and get them a little cleaned up. Get some of that crosshatch back on so that we can break these rings in. These are cast iron rings, so they require a kind of a coarse finish on them. And so yeah, we'll go ahead and get started on that. I'll show you how that's done. I don't know if it's necessarily how it's supposed to be done, but this is how I've always done it, and it runs pretty good. I will be using the best quality Amazon $30 hone for the entire set. So you could probably imagine the quality of this thing. It's 30 bucks for a set of 1, 2, 3, 4 and extra stones and all that stuff. And you know, it's not the best. So I think it was $40 with shipping for this. The head gasket was $26. As you can tell, good quality. And then I bought an exhaust valve because the number 4 cylinder has a pit on the exhaust valve, so I will be replacing that too. Get some compression back on it. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is the hone on the drill. And I just did a test on the number 4 cylinder. Let me show you the scratch that it has. I just did a very light pass on it just to, you know, see if the scratch would show up a little bit more. And there it is. It doesn't look like it's deep, but it is pretty deep. It is, I think this was the worst cylinder. You could tell by this combustion chamber, it's black from oil passing through and burning, and the other ones are not. They're pretty clean. But this one has really fresh oil passing through, and the piston itself also had some stains on it. So, again, very cheaply done. Let me see if I can do this while holding the phone at the same time. So you compress the tool itself, and you put it into the cylinder. The tool will expand. There's an adjustable spring on it. Okay. Now I'm using probably the most inadequate lubricant for this, which is PB Blaster, because that's all I had. And I spray a decent, generous amount in there to lube it up. You want to try to get a crosshatch. I think it's 45 degrees, which, let me set my wrist to set that standard over there. So put it in forward. You know, that's 45 degrees. Oops, that came out. I'm not supposed to do that. But anyway, that's 45 degrees or so. We're going to do that to all the cylinders and clean them all up. And then I'll show you how to, or how I know how to adjust the ring end gap on the new oversized rings. All right, so the cylinders got a quick hone on them. Some of them have a little bit of a ring ridge, like the number 3 one. You can't really feel it, so I think it's going to be okay. I also don't want to overdo it and take too much material off, or, you know, hones are not necessarily perfect, so I don't want to put the cylinder out of round either. So the next step that we're going to do is, I got on my toolbox right here, I marked the cylinders, and I laid the first ring on each cylinder. Like I said, these are 30 thousandths over, so they're not going to be able to fit right now. They're going to be too tight. So what I'm going to start doing is placing them inside the cylinder, one at a time, on the corresponding cylinder that I have marked. And then I'm lucky enough to have a manual for the F134 engine, and I will hand file them until we reach the tolerance. Now, if somebody knows better about this than me, I would like some feedback. It's a little bit difficult to understand here, but it gives you the cylinder oversize, which in my case it's 20 thousandths, and it's supposed to tell you what the gap is. So the end gap tells you right there. Now this is 7 thousandths to 29 thousandths, which I think is it's too much of a margin. I did the math on it, and it's supposed to be around 13 thousandths, which is right in between. I don't want to leave it too tight either, because I don't want the ring expanding and binding up on the cylinder when it heats up. But I also don't want to leave it too loose, because then we're going to consume oil, just like it was before. Now if you see over here, it tells you the correct ring size, 20 thousandths or so. And then it says ring gap fitting. Some of them say none, file fit, none, file fit. The ones that say file fit give you more of a specific tolerance, but the ones that say none, they give you a really wide tolerance, and I don't understand why that is. So I'm going to go ahead and go right between this number right here. I'm going to go 12 to 13 thousandths and then break it in nice and slow, and we'll see how it turns out. Again, this is not a machine shop. I'm not a machine shop by any means. This is just kind of a way to get this thing to stop consuming so much oil. Well, have our feeler gauge right here. We have the first set of rings. This is the old ring. Let me show you how kind of how bad this was. Let me see if I can. I know it's tricky to show you because it's very small margins. You can't really tell. But now these rings, the old rings, they had a dot on top of them to tell you where the, there it is, tell you which was the top on it. So we'll place the ring inside of the bore. Now what I usually do is I try to put them more towards the center of the cylinder because that's where you could see the most wear on these things. And I push them in with the piston itself. That way it's nice and square or nice and flush, you know, and even inside of the cylinder. Well, there's the gap. Okay. So if we get our feeler gauge, this is the best quality $5 feeler gauge. I don't know. I had it in a toolbox somewhere. I don't really know where it came from, but let me go ahead and open it. Sorry. Oh, come on. Sorry. Let's get this thing. They're sticky. This hasn't been used in a long time. Okay. All right. Now, this is our feeler gauge. Now, the thickest one that it comes with, it might be very hard to see. Actually, yeah, it's almost impossible to see, but it's 24 thousandths. Okay, now that equates to 0.610 millimeter. And I'm going to be doing everything in imperial just because this thing is from the era of standard, so it's just easier with that. Now let me see if there's a thicker one on this end. Actually, there might be a thicker one on this end. I didn't notice that. Hold on. Oh, yeah, there is. Okay. What is this one? Ah, there we go. Let's see if I can focus this thing. 25 thousandths, which is 0.635 millimeter. Okay. Now 25 thousandths would be the utmost that it's supposed to require. Remember, it said 17 thousandths was the most. So if I take this feeler gauge right here and I jam it in, it just goes right in. There's too much of a gap. So that's what we're going to try to machine. See if I can try to get it to show you better, but yeah, see that? It's super loose in there. There's zero drag on it. So we're going to go ahead and file these new rings down and get the gap correct. See how it goes. Okay, so now I used the piston, which this is the number 4 piston. This one had some blow-by on it. The other ones did not. This is the one that had that scratch on it. And as you can tell, this thing has a pretty long stroke. It's not very wide, so it's very under square, meaning that there is more travel or more stroke than bore. And we are starting with the number 4 since it was the most beat up one. I pushed the ring all the way to the bottom after I started to file it. And so I just got it to fit. Now we are at 0 gap. As you can tell right there, there is no gap whatsoever on it. And we're going to start slowly putting it on the vise. Show you right here. I'm going to put it on the vise, and then with our file, we're going to file it down very slowly because they're cast iron, and cast iron is pretty soft, believe it or not. It eats through very quickly. We'll try to keep the ring on the vise. I'll show you with the old one. Okay, so we'll try to put the ring on the vise very gently. Get this in here to show you. Sort of like this. And the reason why I want to do that is because I also want to file this square. So I don't want to go, you know, I don't want to go off one side like that or another side like that. This is a flat file on one end, by the way. It's round on the other. It's the only file I had that was able to do this. But I want to file it square so that it doesn't have basically a point to one side or, you know, an unevenness to the other. And you want to very, very gently put this on the vise because these are pretty brittle. They're very brittle and they break quick. So that's what we're going to do right now. I just got that one to 0 gap, and we're going to go ahead and start filing until we get that desired gap. I already have the feeler gauge set to the gap that I want, which is that the average is 12 thousandths between the highest and the lowest number in here. I also use the Wiseco piston calculator online, which has a formula for rings It came out to the same number, so I'm pretty confident that's what it is. There is our feeler gauge for that, 12 thousandths of an inch, and 0.305 millimeter, as everywhere else in the world would use, but you know, that's what we use. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and let's see how it turns out. All right, so the first ring is completed. I'm just gonna show you this one because all the other ones are the same, so you're gonna be bored, but there is the ring end gap, and look how much smaller that looks now. And here is our feeler gauge that I was showing you earlier. It's the 12 thousandths one. I set the ring right at the middle of the cylinder using the piston to square it in there. And then that 12 thousandths feeler gauge now, come on, focus, there you go. It goes in as it should, nice and snug. But there is give, so that's good. We're gonna go ahead and do the rest of them. This particular model has it has 2 compression rings. And I know it looks like it has 3, but the top one does not take a piston ring. I don't know why they designed it that way. But basically it's the second groove, the third are the compression rings, and then the last one are the oil control rings with that wavy ring in between them. So we're gonna do all of them. And it's gonna take some time. It's very delicate and it's very easy to overdo, so you only get one shot at doing it. So we're gonna go ahead and very gently do all of them until we can get it the best that we can. All right, so we got all of the rings changed out already. We filed them down and we got them to the correct gap, like I had told you guys earlier. And we fitted them already onto the pistons. We cleaned up the gaps. You could use a broken piece of a ring to do that. So you could just take one of the compression rings and snap them. They're cast iron, so they snap real easy. And then you could just use that to clean the grooves, get that carbon deposit out. Now this is in order here from 1 to 4, and you can tell that 1, 2, and 3 are pretty good. And then number 4 is the one that had that scratch on it, and it had that blow-by going through. You could kind of tell right there. So this is also the exhaust valve for that number 4 cylinder, which was not very good. So that's also replaced. So we should have full compression back in that cylinder. We should be running on all 4 cylinders now. These are the old rings right here. I filed every single one to the correct gap for their corresponding cylinder, including the oil control rings, which are the little thin ones. Let me see if I can show you one of them. These ones right here. They're filed to the correct gap just in case. And now the next step right here will be to assemble these. So we're going to go ahead and put these back onto the engine itself. I do not have a piston ring compressor to install these, so I'll be very careful. I'll probably do it with a set of screwdrivers and a pick, you know, careful not to scratch anything. And again, like I said, I know this is not the best case scenario procedure with if I had a machine shop, but this is what I have. And we're gonna make it run, and we are on a budget, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that. So we will put these on and I'll show you how that's done. Okay, so a little update over here. I installed the pistons and rings, and I'm sorry that I couldn't record while I was doing it. It requires both hands and it's a little bit tricky. But I did end up using this piston ring compressor from O'Reilly's, it was like $12 or $13. And you know, I fix air compressors, so I'm used to putting, you know, piston rings and cylinders, and they usually have some sort of a tapered edge right at the cylinder. This one doesn't. This is a very, very sharp edge. And the problem that I was getting is that the oil control rings have the little wavy expander ring, which I'll show you what that looks like right here. They have this thing right here. And this is designed to keep pressure on the oil control rings. And it was making it so the oil control rings would open and, you know, go past the bore on the cylinder. So I put them under the piston ring compressor, and it was a little bit tricky to do, but it worked out. So they're all in, they're lubricated, they're facing the correct way. The F134 engine has a what's called the T-slot on the piston, and then on the connecting rod there is an oil squirting hole that lubricates one side of the engine. So that's all assembled to spec. Basically the oil squirting jet goes facing the oil dipstick, and the other side, the T-slot, goes facing the camshaft, or in this case the exhaust and intake valves. So that's already assembled over here, and I cleaned up the old cylinder head material gasket. I am not going to machine the cylinder head, but I am going to check to make sure that none of them are leaking, even the one that I replaced. Make sure that there is no imperfections on the seat or anything like that. So we'll check them and make sure they're not leaking, and then we'll go ahead and assemble the cylinder head and put the oil pan back on it, because that's off too. The connecting rods are torqued to 40 foot-pounds. So we'll go ahead and assemble everything, and I'll show you before we start it up. Hopefully we can start this thing up together. I think it'll run good. I went ahead and I finished installing everything, and I really do apologize because I couldn't film all of it. Everything is installed: cylinder head, valve cover, and all the ancillaries. However, in the process of installing everything, I noticed that the radiator right here was loose from the bracket. So I went ahead and I ran a wire brush through it, and it is brass. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solder it with the acetylene torch. No, it's not oxyacetylene, it's just acetylene and air. And I'm going to use flux and just regular plumbing solder to try to get it, so it doesn't do this anymore, because I don't want vibrations to break this thing on the highway. So let's try that out. Good to go. Hopefully it holds. Now this next part I'm gonna go ahead and record live, or as it's happening, better said, which I feel like it's honest, because a lot of people, they do engine rebuilds or major work on their engines, and they add the fluids and they do all this stuff, and then they fire them up, and they only show you when the engine is running great, and it's just not true. There's always hiccups with these things. You leave the timing 108 degrees off, or something is wrong, or you left the tolerance wrong, or something will happen. So I want to show this as it is happening. It has not started yet. It's ice cold. It's got the oil film from all the stuff I was doing over here. There are the fluids. There's nothing on it. There's no oil. There's no coolant on it. I'm going to go ahead and add coolant and oil to it, and we'll get this thing started live, and we'll see what happens. So let's go ahead and try it out. I'm going to put the camera here and try to record it live. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Letting the fuel pump prime. It is an electric fuel pump. I am going to have to adjust the valve lash on it because it's a little noisy, but it's running. Let's go ahead and turn it off. After a lot of tuning up and a lot of finding small problems, this thing is it's running pretty good. It's been sitting overnight now, and it's ice cold, but it got some things done to it, and I'll show you here real quick what I did to it. Number one, I had to change the ignition coil because I was getting a really rough running, and it was hard to find. I checked the points, I filed them, I set them to the correct gap, I checked the condenser, I also checked the resistor for the ignition down there, and everything was good. And I checked finally the ohms on the coil, and it was shot. So it was giving spark, but it was very random. I'll show you what the coil looked like. This was the old ignition coil. It doesn't have a brand or anything on it, but yeah, it was pretty old. It's got some fluid inside of it. I'm sure it's oil for insulation. So that's good to go. I'll show you kind of the setup that I have for the carburetor because it's not original. Originally, it came with a mechanical fuel pump, and I was getting a lot of issues with vapor lock on this engine. So what I did to reduce that is I got rid of that mechanical fuel pump because I could not find one that would fit this thing, no matter how much money I spend, that would have the correct pressure for it. The cam and the lever on the lever on the fuel pump would not reach the cam, or it would not have the correct tolerance. So I got tired, and I got myself the finest quality $16 online fuel pump, which I mounted on the frame right here. So it's under the tank, which on this model is under the seat. So it is gravity fed. It's 12 volt. And then I also ran a fuel filter with a return on it. Now these help prevent vapor lock by having a constant stream, a very small stream of fuel returning to the tank which I routed through here on the firewall, and I use this hose to prevent the hose from being cut with the sheet metal. And then comes down here, goes on the side, and it goes on top. The sender unit on this car was completely busted, so I just drilled and tapped an 1/8 inch pipe thread hole with a nipple on it, and that fuel constantly flows through there, and it runs really, really good. There has not been a single vapor lock issue here, especially here in Las Vegas, which is where I'm at, where it's hot. So that runs pretty good. I just serviced the air filter on it. It's an oil bath air filter, and that runs really good too. So it's pretty good. It's ready to be broken in. I already have started it after I assembled it. I just left it sitting overnight because I was tired. So let's see if it starts. Probably give it a few pumps. It's pretty hot outside. I don't think it needs choke. Put it in neutral. And there we go. It's running. It's cold right now. There we go. Running real good. Check the oil pressure on it. Around 50 pounds, and that's running 10W40 O'Reilly brand. Now the next part of the project for when we start traveling is going to have to be some sort of a storage for back here. This Jeep had a seat here, which is this one. I just took it off. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build a little bit of a storage right here, some sort of a lid between this and a stopper at the front where the seats are at. That way when I travel, I could keep, cooking stuff and tools and supplies that I need for traveling with this thing. And when I store this thing in a storage, every time that I do travel, the stuff stays in here relatively safe. And it's not so exposed to people just looking at it and grabbing it and taking it out. Now, to be honest with you, this thing is so easy to steal. Anybody with a piece of wire could just go under the dashboard and kind of hot wire the ignition switch and steal it. But it's also a stick shift, and that's kind of a new theft deterrent because less and less people, I feel like, know how to drive a stick shift now, so that could work out. And then I could also put the transfer case in neutral to kind of make it a little bit more difficult. I'll probably be disconnecting the ignition coil or something though when I park it for extended periods of time. So that'll be our next project. That'll be our next video. You saw we got it running. Everything seems to be running pretty good. I checked the differential fluids on it, and that looks pretty good. The brakes are in decent shape. It is a single circuit drum brake all around setup, and no booster on it, so you gotta do a little bit of force to stop this thing, but it does stop fairly well. It brakes pretty even. Other work that I've done is I put an exhaust on it because it didn't even have one when I bought the thing. So I just did a basic exhaust with a downpipe over there, and I went over little things, some wiring. I put the classic Auga horn on it just to get people out of the way, or not really, just to have people laugh at me more than anything. I checked some of the wires and changed some of the old glass fuse style with the plastic, more common fuses. New battery and little things like that. I showed you the repair of the radiator. It is the original radiator though. So it's, for what it is running pretty good. It runs, it idles nicely, it starts easy, and it does okay on the highway. I think I could do maximum 60. That's as fast as this thing will probably go, is 60, really pushing it. It's only got a 3-speed. And then I put a sticker in here so that people could overtake me, which doesn't seem to do anything because people just get mad and they tailgate me, but I can't do much about that. Other than that, that's the Jeep, and I think mechanically it's ready. Another big thing I did to it, and I didn't show you this because this was a long time ago when I first bought it. I rebuilt, well, I didn't really rebuild, but I took off the transmission and the transfer case, and I put new seals on it all around, which was a pretty difficult job, but it was leaking a lot from the output shaft seal. So that's I replaced every single seal on this transmission and transfer case. These T90s leak. There's just no way around it. Maybe there is a way around it. Maybe I'm not that good of a mechanic. That also could be it. But man, they just leak a lot. So that's done. It's not leaking a lot right now. It's pretty clean. But that was a big deal. I greased up the U-joints on it. They're serviceable. And that's pretty much it. The brake lines look like they've been replaced before. I haven't really touched them. That was not me. Somebody else did that. But they look fresh. So they should be safe. The brake circuit itself is also pretty good. This is the clutch arm right here. That goes to the side of the chassis and into the spring and into the throat bearing. It's got the old school style pedals that go down into the floor. And those gauges over there, I put those on because there's the big center gauge doesn't really work. Also, there is no fuel gauge on this. This is something that I kind of came up with just to check out the fuel. The fuel cap is right here, and that's the tank. You open the fuel cap, and then I made a very advanced mechanism or design for checking the fuel. It's this stick that's marked full. So just like on a plane or like a little Cessna, you stick the thing in here and then you pull it out, and then there's your fuel. We got half a tank or so. It's a pretty static system, nothing crazy. And I think a sender unit at one point would be nice. But for now, that's what we got, and it was free, so that's even better. There is also a bleed hole on this cap because this thing would draw vacuum, and it would starve of fuel, which was weird, but that was a pretty big problem. So that's it. Let's go on to the next thing. The next video, I think I'll show you guys how I built this really cheap enclosure here, and then we'll probably go on a basic little day trip to test it out on the highway, and maybe do an overnight camping if we get too crazy. And we'll see how this thing runs. Now, recording our last video, I learned a lot of things for making videos on YouTube, which I didn't know. And the number one is that the sound was awful just from recording on my phone. So I bought a microphone. And then another thing too is that the camera is supposed to be phased horizontally, not vertically, or if not, the video looks not very good. So that'll be better on the next videos. On the next video, we're going to test the Jeep out. We're going to go out for a little day trip, maybe go camping with it. And we'll also build that box on the rear of it to keep our camping stuff. I'll also put some videos of how the Jeep looked before it got repaired, before when I just bought it, just so you could see kind of what's happened to it. And thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and hopefully see you on the next video. Bye.
El cablecito.
Saca la batería entonces. ¿Lo puedo conectar acá?
Yo me voy a correr de adelante por si acaso te autoenciende.
No pasa nada. Sí es algo muy común. Vamos a hacer así. Porque el tipo dijo que tenía un problema eléctrico que no lo podían encontrar, pero tiene platino, así que no. Entonces le conectó un cable al encendido, ¿ves?
Debe ser la computadora.
Sí. Pero quiero ponerlo...
pero hace chispa.
Y sí, porque tiene un poquito de carga.
Ok. Algo hace ruido en el auto también.
Es la bomba de nafta eléctrica, ¿ves?
Ah.
Vamos prendiendo.
Oh my god.
No quiero que quede el platino abierto.
Chingale, marrano, ajá.
Para probarlo. Después le pongo el filtro de aire.
¿Tiene freno? ¿Frena? ¿Sí?
Es durísima la dirección.
¿Tiene luz?